Someone told me earlier that I'm playing checkers instead of chess. Well, I'm very suspicious of supposed chess masters when it comes to international foreign policy. How are we going to, in a way that is not cost prohibitive to us or that does not cost American lives, how are we going to secure this country and the allegiance of all of these people? And then, like, how?
This is a
we never learn. We never learn. And I know that there are a lot of people and very intelligent people who are saying that one historical event is not automatically a blueprint for another. That's true, but I feel like we have seen so many iterations of this going back, I mean, thousands, hundreds of years or whatever, or let's just start with Vietnam War and go from there. We have seen so many iterations of this where there's so much bluster and celebration, mission accomplished. Maybe Trump needs to get a fighter pilot outfit and get off a jet or something. Mission accomplished and all of that. And there's so much bluster and congratulations and victory laps at the beginning. And then what we inevitably find is, gee, it's actually pretty fucking complicated to take over a country, to hold that country, to ensure fair elections, and to ensure that the next leader you get is the one that you want. And if anyone thinks that we have not stepped into a major potential clusterfuck, I don't know what to tell you. And I still don't know what we're really getting out of this. You were dead on when you said earlier that we do not have their oil reserves, their oil supplies locked down. Far from it. It's a giant country. And just because, let me say one more thing to those of you who are saying, well, look, the Venezuelans are celebrating. Yeah, the Iraqis celebrated the ouster of Saddam. The Libyans celebrated Gaddafi. It's easy to celebrate when a guy that you hate falls. But then you know what happens? Tribalism kicks in. Pride in one's country kicks in, and the desire not to have one's country pillaged and raped by foreign invaders kicks in really fucking hard.
I agree, and I said a version of that myself earlier, and I want to read these super chats, but the whole, oh, we're just going to take their oil. They literally were saying that. The press conference is like, okay, maybe she was on board before you motherfuckers came out and said you're just going to fucking pillage the nation.
So stupid to say that.
I couldn't believe it. And what self-respecting Venezuela? Anyway, again, when you take over, I have to repeat this every time. I am disappointed, but I'm not surprised that people just absolutely, some people at least, lock, stock, and barrel are all in on this. And yay, Monroe Doctrine. And when are we going after Colombia and Cuba? And they're talking about where I live too. And it's the same with Iraq, actually. Iran's next. And they did go through and destabilize all these countries. And Trump's talking about peace in the Middle East. What the fuck? There's no peace in the Middle East. There never will be, probably. But, like, it's the same old song and dance. The oil's going to pay for it all. Literally the same line from Iraq. The Venezuelan people are going to be so much better off. And they love us there. And I can guarantee you they don't.
I don't understand, and fill me in on this because you've been following the news today too. I don't understand why we even think that we've shut down a drug trafficking operation. Do we think that these military powers and these cartels and I mean, it wasn't just Maduro. He wasn't single-handedly running the drug operation. So, like, do we think that all of these highly vested, powerful, money-oriented interests are just going to now roll over and say, sure, U.S., come in, clean up our country, end this drug? I mean, is this crazy? Are we fucking crazy? Seriously?
Yeah, we're out of the drug business now. We're just going to quit. You guys are right. Actually, we're sorry. We're on your side now, and we're going to stop doing that and stop making billions of dollars. And, it's all good. Sorry. We apologize. Lo siento. Lo siento.
And I know that some people are saying, okay, well, actually, this was a move against Iran, and this was a move against other sort of more nuanced interests. Well, so you say. But I'm very suspicious. Someone told me earlier that I'm playing checkers instead of chess. Well, I'm very suspicious of supposed chess masters when it comes to international foreign policy, because Dick Cheney and Paul Wolfowitz, and go back to, even the guys who started the Vietnam War, whatever, any disastrous war you pick or occupation you pick, you find a bunch of really fucking supposedly smart guys with fancy degrees from Harvard, chess masters of international policy, who make the dumbest decisions and who don't seem to be able to foresee the most obvious complications that arise in these situations. I just don't buy it.
Okay, I was just talking about The Best and the Brightest, a really good book by David Halberstam about how the Vietnam War spiraled out of control.
I should read that.
Yeah, it's really good. But So somebody in chat said, Americans can't be touched. Dude, you're retarded. I don't know what to tell you. Politely, you're retarded. Because, I mean, can we kill a bunch of people in Venezuela and other countries? Yeah. I mean, can we kill more than they can? I think so, yeah. But if you think this isn't going to have blowback, then you're not thinking things through.
I was going to ask your opinion. Do you think that this will set a precedent for, I don't think Mexico, I mean, who knows, but do you think this will set a precedent for action in other countries? Or do you think this really was an outlier because Venezuela is so discredited and Maduro is so despised by so many people?
Well, I know little Marco wants to regime change in Cuba. And if you saw the New York Times piece a couple weeks ago, that basically said this was going to go down. And the reason he's such an... First off, he's a neocon. He's always been a neocon. And for people who don't know that, I'm telling you now, he is a neocon. And so he favors this type of thing in general. But Venezuela, a key ally of Cuba, I definitely don't think Cuba's off the table. Colombia, he's really been saber rattling towards Colombia, which I've been to Medellin, as they say it there, twice. I don't support that. I don't support Venezuela. They've talked about strikes inside Mexico. That, I mean, you know, they were talking about Venezuela, then they did it. So I wouldn't rule these things out. And Trump loves going out there and talking about the amazing military, and he loves the commander-in-chief role. And so I certainly, I would put it at 50-50 odds. But you talk about this was retardation just in and of itself. Not necessarily taking Maduro, if that's all they were going to do, but saying we're going to run Venezuela now. Okay, well, that's a pretty big apple to try to chew. Much less, I don't know if you know this, I think you do, Colombia is right next door. And there's Venezuelan refugees inside Colombia now. And I got a couple of friends, I know some of them. And I got one on WhatsApp. I thought about messaging him, see if he wanted to call in. I told you this already. Expanding it to Colombia, to a neighboring country. They can go back and forth between the border. A lot of this area is jungle. Right. Sounding familiar? But, you know, like that would be just massive miscalculation and an even bigger clusterfuck. So, but I don't rule it out. No.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up the porous border and the number of people that do cross regularly from Venezuela to Colombia. I watched a documentary several years ago about just how bad things were in Venezuela, and not to minimize the terrible damage that Chavez and then Maduro and their ilk did to the country. But there's so many people that immigrated to Colombia or go back and forth, like you said. And so if our running that country depends on us keeping it pretty locked down and tight, that border is a problem.
Yeah, well, part of running a country is securing the border. It's like the main part, really. And we have a hard enough time securing our own border, much less the Venezuelan border. And so I don't know, Kurtz, because somebody floated 15,000 U.S. troops. First off, if they did that, you can't do that. What is that? That maybe could secure Caracas? I'm not even sure 15K could secure Caracas. You'd be putting those troops in massive jeopardy. You got to go in. If you go in, you got to go in heavy. And I mean 200, 300, up to 500,000 troops, which is, I think that's bigger than our standing army. Actually, I'd have to double check. Of course, we have reserves we could call in too, like we did in Iraq. But
well, that was a miscalculation too that we made in Iraq, if you'll remember, is that General Shinseki said that we needed a minimum of, I think, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like hundreds of thousands of troops. And then you had
they try to do it on the cheap.
Who were saying, no, we don't need that many. That's a miscalculation as well.
I know people who died in Iraq and people who got maimed, and that's not to mention the people who came back safe and are. It's fucked up to go to war. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Right. So these people who are not going to be fighting any wars, and I'm not going to be either, quite frankly. I'm like Chris Rock. I don't give a fuck if the tanks rolling down Flatbush Avenue or fucking Riverside Drive in Memphis. I ain't picking up a fucking gun. I'm going inside. And that's just me. I'll sit here and talk about it. I love geopolitics and analyzing. I'm not planning on fighting any wars unless they're trying to take me away or some shit. So yeah, it's easy to sit back on Twitter and all these commentators are like, yeah, free oil and we'll take them out. Some people in the chat, yeah, no big deal. Okay, well, it is a big deal for the people who have to go over there and fight these fucking wars and secure these countries and in some cases die. It is a big deal if it causes dead people inside of America, which it very well could if they spiral it out of control to other countries. You're not thinking things through, and you just don't care about the people who are actually going to be signed up to do this, and that's a fucked up way to think. So,
and I know I know people's intentions and their thought processes with this are genuine, and I don't want to insult people and say, oh, you bunch of dummies or whatever. But well, I do. When I see the kind of like cheering that I see today, and it seems like there's not even like there are people who aren't even like pausing for a beat to think about just how complicated life is. I mean, everything always seems simple at the beginning, and then no matter what it is, anything, then you get into it and you're like, oh. And it just seems to me that we take out the leader here, but like there's still an entire infrastructure. There are all kinds of corrupt, shady people. There's still the cartel. I mean, everything is still there. And so how are we going to, in a way that is not cost prohibitive to us or that does not cost American lives, how are we going to secure this country and the allegiance of all of these people? And then like how?
And again, I'll repeat what I've already said. They seem to think they had Darcy Rodriguez, the vice president, on board. And then she came out and said they're preparing to defend the nation and they want Maduro released. And she literally said there's a Zionist tinge to this. And I'm like, oh, she doesn't sound like she's on board, Colonel, is all I'm saying. I'll just repeat it. How could you be after that press conference? She may have said she was on board and then it's like, well, fuck, I can't back this. They're coming in to fucking rape all of our natural resources.
Well, and here's the thing too, when you look at, let's look at Vietnam or let's look at Afghanistan and like Hamid Karzai, we have a habit as Americans, our leaders, of getting into bed with foreign leaders that tell us, that assure us, oh, yes, we're on board with you and we agree and we've got things under control. And then when things start to get a little tough or they get some blowback or their own interests are threatened, then suddenly they're not reliable or suddenly they're changing their tune or they're two-faced. They're telling us one thing, but they're doing another.
Imagine that. They're actually concerned with their own political interests and and they'll say anything to the gringo on the phone. And then when they get off the phone, it's like, and they actually talk to Rubio. I don't know if he qualifies as a gringo, but whatever, gringo representative. And then they get off the phone. It's like, okay, yeah, here's the real deal. And yeah, that happened in Iraq. All of our trusted partners over there, they're saying one thing to our face and then their clans and tribes, whatever, they got a whole different spiel. And so it's like that all the time.
Crazy.
He's saying that comparing this to the Iraq debacle.
Oh, yeah, but the thing is we're not just comparing it to that. We're comparing it to all of these other situations through history all over the world where you have similar dynamics and it turned into in its own way a clusterfuck. So I mean, it's not like we're just looking at one thing. We're looking at some form of this over and over and over. And if it were just a matter, like you said, of taking out the dictator and then we had this like completely like clean, non-corrupt functioning government and society underneath that, it would be one thing. But I feel like we've just got all this poison underneath still, right? Yeah,
like I said, if it was just blackbacking Maduro, I wasn't his biggest fan. Anyway, I didn't hate him or anything either, but it's kind of. And I heard from some Venezuelans in Colombia, they weren't big fans of him, and they wouldn't have cared about that. But as far as occupying the country, taking over their natural resources, exploiting them for our benefit, I mean, it's just literally colonialism. Like what the fuck, right? Yeah, that's what it is. And so there's a history of them being pretty upset with colonialism down in South America and all over the world by white people doing that, right? Just to be quite frank. And so it brings up a lot of old and it plays right into the stereotypes. And also again, like
I know that the image of Maduro on that plane, with the eyes shielded and handcuffed and all that. I know that that was great red meat for a lot of Trump's Freudian slip, Trump's base, and for a lot of Americans. But again, that picture around the world, I don't care how much people dislike Maduro, that internationally, that is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, because it is emblematic of the kind of extrajudicial, unconstitutional, shady interventions that the U.S. has been engaged in for years and years. And right or wrong, that really pisses a lot of people off.